Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paper boy, evening TV. You miss your old familiar friends, but waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a lust of somebody who needs you. You're lost out there and you're all alone.
So Mia, tell me more about the methods on this project.
Well, first, we formulated ideas on sampling locations. Then we decided on the fridge, freezer, and outside for temperature sensing. Then we traveled to each other's apartments to get the data. We collected data. And then lastly, we did data analytics.
Introducing the new and improved Sensor Case 4000, brought to you by MTM. We pride ourselves on the sleek, thin, stunning model, and on top of that, it is an extremely durable case with the ability to measure temperature and light in more settings while, get this, still inside the case. The case has been a project for about a month now, with many different prototypes in design, durability, and trial and error. We found that with the crisscross design, it resisted impact from many falls, and that very small holes for the sensors ensured minimal damages to the sensors and Arduino. Alright, so we decided to look at 2 different fridges and freezers, which gave us 4 different sets of data. And we also took data outside on Mia and Taylor's roof in order to have 2 different varied ones. And we decided to look at the relationships on whether or not the doors were open or closed for the fridges and freezers. And for this data set that we got outside, we just simply put shade over the sensor, which would induce a cooling effect. And that served as a negative relationship with the sensor and the temperature because we took data when it was very cold. And so whenever we had the direct sunlight on the sensor, there was also a negative effect, which was really interesting to find. And for whenever we had the doors open for either fridges or freezers, we saw that there was a positive relationship because there was heat being introduced. And then with the fridges and freezers, whenever they were closed, we saw that there was a negative effect there.
Melissa, can you tell me about your hypothesis?
Yeah, so for the freezers, we did anticipate that whenever we close the doors that the sensors would cool up a lot faster. And then when we open the doors, that it would still continue to cool, but not as fast rate. And with the fridges, we did also anticipate that the sensors would cool, and then also when it was open, that it wouldn't cool as fast. And for the outdoor, we did think that it was going to increase with sunlight, but it was still continuing to decrease, and we think that's only because we took the data when it was a cool day. And when we did have the shade on there, it also cooled. And so it was at a faster rate when we did have that shade, though.
Oh, hey.
Hey,
Hey, what's up?
so I just had a few questions for you.
Shoot, let's go.
So why did you choose the locations that you did, and what time of day did you choose to do, and how long did you collect data for?
So we chose 3 locations. We chose a fridge, a freezer, and just outside as like a constant, just to see how temperature changed over time. And as far as the time of day, that wasn't really applicable for like the indoor appliances, you know, just because like it's indoors. And as far as like choosing which ones, I thought the appliances, the light turning on and off, it wouldn't necessarily be like a heat source, but more of a, you know, like indicator of there being a change in heat.
After hours and hours of analyzing data, we were able to come up with these graphs. As one can see, based on both common sense and by observing the residual plots, seeing that they don't follow the parameters of a linear regression, such as constant variances, error terms being independent, and being evenly distributed about the 0 value on the y-axis, one can conclude that most of the collected data should not be modeled using a linear regression. But if one isolates certain increments of the data after an event, such as opening or closing an appliance door or supplying shade to a sensor, a linear fit seems more appropriate. The linear regressions of different segments of data collected from Mia's freezer can be seen below. With all but the first of these segmented intervals from Mia's freezer, a linear regression should be applied. The residuals can be seen evenly distributed about the 0 value of the y-axis and do not resemble any recognizable function of time. But the first plot seems to exhibit residuals as a function of time, which is not desired for a linear regression. You see the U-shaped pattern that they form? We don't want that. Using the linear regressions, you can get some useful data. For instance, the cooling rate of each appliance can be measured based on the slope of each segmented linear regression. From these cooling rates, we were able to conclude that Mia's freezer was the strongest cooling whenever the door was closed, but while open, it was the worst appliance, in that it let in the most heat from the outside environment. On average, each appliance cooled to 0.034 degrees Fahrenheit per second, and when open, each appliance warmed 0.028 degrees Fahrenheit per second.
For our AnyLogic models, we decided to graph temperature over time, because we saw a generally decreasing trend, with the only portions that were increasing were when we opened the appliance doors, and then when we measured the R-squared value for each of the individual segments, we saw that our lowest value was 0.93, and the closer we are to 1, the more accurate our models were.
Only measure simple parameters in order to give the most straightforward graphs and answers. We assumed that a fridge and a freezer would decrease the temperature of the Arduino. When opened, it would decrease, but at a much slower rate because of the air that was coming in. Furthermore, we assumed that a shade and no sunlight would decrease temperature because rays have a direct impact on temperature objects.
For our project, we learned our systems were not mainly linearly modeled and have much more complex relationships than we could have assumed.
Your data can be measured more or less complicated depending on the parameters and variables you put in your system. The parameters on your system might also be caused by the physical limitations. For the course, we found that systems are interconnected pieces of machinery that function together to form a specific task.
Different temperatures and circumstances gave us the best data because the sensors are so cheap that in order to show relationships well, there need to be extremities in the environment. However, we did have to simplify our system and environment so that we were only affecting the system, opening and closing the appliances ourselves.
We thought out our systems well, and we were able to measure everything accordingly. However, we did not think about the space in the freezers well, so it was difficult to fit our entire laptops in there.
Our favorite part of the activity was choosing systems to measure changes and see how something was built in class can be applied into our lives. The least favorite part was the extraneous data sorting.
Some challenges that we faced were that after we had done our first 2 datasets, my computer was failing to open Data Streamer for Excel. The other challenge we faced was making quality video with a short time limit and with the amount of information we needed to present. Overall, though, we persevered and worked around the clock to make up for lost time and provide thoughtful data analysis for our 5 datasets.
We learned so many skills that many engineers don't often get the chance to. The class was structured great, and we gained a lot of motivation and insight for our future careers and opportunities. Overall, though, our favorite part of this course was the friendships and memories we made. This course forced us 3 to kind of be like part-time jobs to each other. We made it through dead ends and plenty of frustration, but we survived together and learned a great deal of things and made plenty of memories along the way.